Hello friends and welcome. In this one, let's take a look at building up some for loops. So I'm going to be using Visual Studio 2019. Let's make a new project. So I'm going to create a new project right here. Select that. And then from here, as you can see, there are quite a few options. Just go with a simple console application. It doesn't really matter whether you use the .NET Core or you just use like the .NET Framework console application. So here across the top into the search box where I'm located next to, I'm going to type console. Just to show you, so for example, you can go even with the old-fashioned .NET framework. Select that and then click on Next. Now from here, you have some additional features. You can name your project, give it a solution name, you can choose the framework. So let's see, I updated my Visual Studio today, so this is the latest one that I have, 4.7.2. But these things here are not too important, because for loops are pretty much the same as they have been for many years now. So just create the project, let it load the usual template, Visual Studio. So when it finishes loading, it'll probably look like something like this, and that's perfectly, it's all that we really need. Across the top, you have our usual using block. You can just collapse all of that out of view. That's all fine. And here, I'm just going to build up a for loop. Remember that the main is a method, and you need that because that's how the operating system hooks into your program, so you can bring it into memory and run it. So add a space in the middle, and imagine that I'm going to go with this perhaps most elementary of exercises. Comma, print following 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you always want to look for structure. It doesn't matter whether you're doing computer science or mathematics, look for structure, for patterns, for things that you can understand. So this is what I'm thinking, okay? First value, that's equal to 1. I want to know that for my for loop design. Okay, last value, that's 5. I want to know that for my for loop design, so important. Okay, step. That's also important, okay? So values change by 1. So these are key preliminary pieces of observation. Let's actually build up the for loop based on this. So what I say is for int I equals 1, and stop here for a second so that you understand how things connect. The fact that I wrote first value equals 1 means that now I'm setting this here equal to 1. Then let me add the middle part. So that's going to look like this. You're going to put semicolon. Then you're going to put your logical conditions. So in my case, this last value is 5, so I'm going to put I is less than or equal to 5 for that reason. And then because values change by 1, I'm going to put I++. So I look at the things that I want to generate. I keep that in mind. I write down some key pieces of information about it. Then I design the loop based on that. And now because the goal is simply to print these values, there's nothing too complicated. So I'm just going to say here console.writeLine. Okay, and if you want, you can just put the I in there directly. Terminate that with a semicolon as usual, and let's run this to see what happens. So debug, start with that debugging, control plus F5 as you might remember. Let it make the program, in other words the old-fashioned executable file. Let it load into memory, and when it does that, in this case as you can see, we have simply the output 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so it's working as expected. Let's terminate the old-fashioned console window, and then the output window down below, if I scroll through this, look, at the end, it outputs console app.exe, so in other words, it produces an executable file. And this path here is where that file is stored on your C drive, and hopefully you get one succeeded, not something different. So this is one possibility. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this code here. I don't want to just get rid of it, so let me just comment it out. Okay, and now you can take this in Visual Studio, right-click on it, and you see where it says outlining. You see where it says hide selection. I'll leave that there for a second, make sure you catch on. You can just collapse that block. So hit hide selection, and it collapses that block out of view. It's as usual present, but it's present behind the ellipses. Okay, let's do another exercise, just for the sake of variety. So imagine that this time I want to print something a bit different. So I want to print 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I gotta be careful. Again, first value, I always make those key observations, is 5. Okay, step size, or if you like how the values change. So if you want to call it the step size, however I choose to call it, let me add something else in there. For example, how values change, something along those lines. Okay, there's no standardized vocabulary for any of these things, so just make up something reasonable. So I'm going to say that there's a decrease of 1. So I look at 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Clearly the values are decreasing by 1. Okay, and then last value, that's equal to 1. So key observations, then once I have those, and I have my objective in mind, now I know how to build my loop. Okay, so I'm going to say for, I'm going to say int I equals 5. That's the starting value. Okay, now let's think about this a little bit. I want the values to be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I'm going to say that the logical condition has to be so that I is greater than or equal to 1. So in other words, I could be 5. Is 5 greater than or equal to 1? That checks. When I is 4 greater than or equal to 1? That checks. At its last value, when I is 1 greater than or equal to 1? That checks, you see? Okay. Now, because we want to step down from 5 to 4 to 3 to 1, you want to make sure that the condition captures that. So you wouldn't do 1 I plus plus, you would do I minus minus. That simply means on each turn of the loop, decrease the value by 1. And then you just print it. So I'm going to say here, console.writeLine, I, terminate with a semicolon. It's a statement, a complete thought. Let's run this and see what happens here. So across the top, as usual, start with debugging, say Control F5. Okay. And when I look at this, I see I have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, so the values look good. They look the way they're supposed to be looking. That's what I wanted to do. Let me terminate this, terminate this. So is there a general principle? Is it possible to organize the creation of for loops? Yes, it is. Keep in mind your objective. That's very important. In this simple case, these are just lists. You look at the last value, the first value, then you look at what happens between intermediate values. All of that goes into the construction of the loop as I have just shown you. Okay, that is it for me. Please leave a like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in another video.